This ship can do something that looks impossible because it was built to solve a problem ordinary vessels cannot touch. It can sink itself on purpose, lowering its own deck until the sea covers the steel. Not because it is damaged, and not because something has gone wrong during a storm. Not because it is going down, and not because the crew has lost control. It sinks because, for this machine, sinking is part of the job. Its name is BOKA Vanguard, formerly known as Dockwise Vanguard. And it is one of the strangest heavy transport vessels ever built, because it does not behave like a normal ship. Most ships are designed to keep their cargo deck high and dry above the water. This one is designed to put its deck under the water when the operation requires it. That sounds backwards, until you understand what this vessel is built to carry across the ocean. Oil rigs that are too large for ordinary transport. Floating platforms that already look like small industrial islands. Giant offshore modules with towers, pipes, machinery, and steel legs. And sometimes, even other ships that need to be lifted out of the water. BOKA Vanguard is a semi-submersible heavy transport vessel, a carrier that can deliberately become partly underwater. The idea is simple to explain, but extremely difficult to execute safely at this scale. First, the vessel floods its ballast tanks, using seawater as a controlled part of the machine. Water enters the ship's internal tanks through a planned system of pumps, valves, and compartments. The ship slowly sinks lower and lower, not randomly, but in a measured and balanced way. Its deck can go deep enough below the surface for floating cargo to move above it. Then the cargo is positioned over the open deck, usually with tugs, planning, and very careful alignment. It is not lifted by a giant crane hanging above the sea. It is not dragged up a ramp onto a normal cargo ship. It floats into place while the carrier waits below it like a submerged industrial platform. Then the ballast water is pumped out, and the whole balance of the operation changes. The vessel rises, slowly pushing its deck back toward the surface. The deck comes back up under the load, with water draining away from the steel. And the cargo is lifted out of the water by the ship itself, without a crane doing the main lift. At that moment, the sea stops carrying the cargo's weight. BOKA Vanguard carries it instead, turning floating structures into dry cargo. That is why the vessel has such a strange shape when you look at it from above. It has no traditional bow in the way most people expect from a ship. The deck is long, flat, open, and almost brutally simple. The useful cargo space is about 275 meters long and 70 meters wide. That is not a normal deck. It is closer to a floating industrial floor. The ship can also handle cargo that overhangs the deck at the bow or stern. That matters because offshore structures are rarely neat rectangles that fit into ordinary ship shapes. A normal ship wants cargo to fit neatly within its deck and hull limits. BOKA Vanguard is built for cargo that refuses to be neat, balanced, or convenient. Its deadweight capacity is roughly 117,000 tons, according to Biscali's fleet data. This is not a vessel carrying containers stacked in clean rows. It is a vessel carrying pieces of the offshore world, already assembled and brutally heavy. The ship is 275 meters long, which is longer than many familiar large vessels. Its maximum breadth is almost 100 meters, giving it an unusually wide working footprint. When submerged, its draft can reach about 31 meters, deep enough to let huge floating loads pass above. That means the ship changes its own relationship with the sea during the job. At one moment, it is a carrier. At another moment, it becomes a floating dry dock. Instead of forcing the cargo to match the ship adjusts itself around the cargo. That is why vessels like this allow huge offshore structures to be built where construction is easier. Then those structures can be transported across oceans as complete units, rather than assembled piece by piece offshore. That can save time offshore, where every day can be expensive and weather can ruin a schedule. It can reduce dangerous work done in waves and wind, because more work can happen in controlled yards. But the operation is not just about size. It is about control over weight, water, timing, and movement. The ballast system has to lower and raise the vessel evenly, or the whole operation becomes dangerous. The cargo has to be aligned carefully, because a giant load cannot simply be pushed into place by guesswork. The sea is moving the whole time, even when the operation looks slow from far away. Wind, current, waves, and the cargo's own weight all try to make the operation harder. The vessel uses powerful propulsion and thrusters to maneuver during these delicate operations. From the outside, it can look slow, but slow is the point when the cargo is this large. Every meter matters when a giant platform or ship is floating above your deck. The strangest part is that the ship almost disappears during loading because the deck is hidden below the surface. It is like a giant hand coming up from below the sea, except the hand is made of ballast tanks and steel. It uses buoyancy, ballast, and the ocean itself instead of trying to overpower everything with a taller crane. Most ships carry cargo on top. This ship goes under the cargo first. Then it lifts the ocean's biggest machines out of the water by rising underneath them. It is elegant because every strange part has a job, even if the vessel does not look classically beautiful. The flat deck, ballast shape, ballast tanks, huge width, side structures, and propulsion systems all work together. All of them exist for one brutal engineering problem that normal ships cannot solve. How do you move something too large, too heavy, and too awkward for ordinary ships? BOKA Vanguard answers by becoming less like a ship and more like a movable piece of infrastructure. It sinks, it waits, it rises, and then it carries a giant across the ocean.